What is good, everybody? Welcome to another Gold Standard production. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera, and as you see, I'm joined by a very special guest this week. You know him from the San Francisco Bay Area radio scene forever. Damon Bruce is here. What's up, Damon?
It's good to be on with you, Rob. Another radio lifer now, just, kicking the can around YouTube. So it's good to see you. Again, we're already bonding over the fact that we wear good old-fashioned headphones when we're doing these things. So we are of like mind. And it's just so everyone knows, you and I have been trying to set up a conversation for like over a month now. And for whatever reasons, we haven't been able to put it together. Your schedule got busy. My plate got full, whatever. About a month ago, I would have assumed the very first thing we were going to talk about would have been the Nick Bosa holdout. And if you had told me then, hey, you're not going to be on with Rob, but for a month from now, do you think that's going to be your lead topic? I would have said, no way. Of course they will have gotten that done. Yet here we are, and here I am with you, and it's great to see you, man. And thank you for having me.
Well, what's going on with this Nick Bosa situation? This doesn't make any sense to me. It's illogical. It hurts the team. I don't even know what they're arguing over this at this point. What, a few $1 million a year, whatever the case may be. At this point, just pay this guy and you'll figure it out.
There are margins to be found on players. There's no margin really on this guy. And I've talked to so many people about the NFL for so many years. I know that the cap, as much as it looks like this big, bold, immovable object, is one of the most easy to manipulate and massage illusions there is. To me, the crime here is that they waited to negotiate with Nick Bosa, or they allowed this much time to eclipse, because this is, to me, the deal you get done first. This is one of those, we wake up in the morning, we get this done, and then we go about the rest of our business, because that's how important the business of Nick Bosa is to the 49ers. Look, they're really good. With or without Nick Bosa, they're really good. But if they want to be great, they need Nick Bosa. And I will attach directly, Rob, Nick Bosa's prime to whatever Super Bowl window you want to talk about. And this is a player who's 25 years old, coming off a Defensive Player of the Year award. If that isn't a player's prime, I really don't know what is. You don't get coupons on reigning Defensive Players of the Year. I've heard some people who are Niners fans, advocates, even say, well, he's asking for Aaron Donald money, and he's not Aaron Donald yet. Well, he hasn't played as long as Aaron Donald. I mean, so there's that. His career is not almost about to end like Aaron's is. Who knows what trajectory it lands on, but I see the trajectory it took off from and where it's going. And let me tell you what Aaron Donald and Nick Bosa do have in common. They're both first ballot Hall of Famers. If Nick Bosa keeps playing like this, he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. So anything else between the two that you want to say, well, this is the reason why this guy's afforded that and this guy's not afforded that, because Aaron Donald really is like one of the 2 or 3 single greatest defensive tackles of all time. Well, I don't know if Nick Bosa is going to end up as one of the 2 or 3 greatest defensive ends of all time, but first ballot Hall of Famer is pretty much equal to first ballot Hall of Famer in my mind anyways. It is borderline negligence that this hasn't been done. I understand that, deadlines breed action, and the closer we get here to the start of the season, maybe something happens. Something better happen. To me, going into Pittsburgh without Nick Bosa in week 1 is a massive front office failure, and to try to curb it or place the blame on Bosa or his representation is just missing the grander conversation that is, this team is trying to win a Super Bowl. Nothing short of that. That's the goal. Go win the Super Bowl. How you do that without Nick Bosa? Well, look at it this way. I don't think you do that without Nick Bosa. So there you go.
No shot whatsoever. You have to have him. It's absurd that this is where we are. I don't understand it. You had 3 jobs this offseason. One was to settle your quarterback situation. For better or worse, they've done that, right? Great. 2, I think, was to figure out what you were going to do after Mike McGlinchey. They didn't really do anything. They just stuck Colton McKivitz there. I think they kind of dropped the ball there. And 3 was to get Nick Bosa under contract, a deal, by the way, which John Lynch said multiple times that he had already budgeted for. And they haven't done that. And we're 2 days away from the start of the season. So What have the 49ers been doing this offseason?
I really don't get it. I mean, to me, it's a mystery. I understand that these, big contracts and big agents and big things take some time sometimes, but they've had 2 years to prepare for it. Like you said, John Lynch has gone to the podium over and over again to express, hey, we've planned for this day. We knew it was going to rain and we brought an umbrella. Well, did you bring a tiny umbrella? Because Nick Bosa needs a golf umbrella. Duh. You knew what you were walking into. You knew it. So it's, to me, look, the whole thing goes away the minute that he signs. And I really do think Nick Bosa is the rare player who you could get into the building 48 hours before a game and have an expectation of him having a 1.5 sack afternoon. I mean, he really is that guy, which is another reason why he should already be in the building. But what I really dislike about this is the timeline of it all. Like, if you really had a do not go past, go price on Nick Bosa, and his agents are above that price, well, then you should have done something about it during the NFL draft. And you should have used this guy as an asset to make a trade that would have bettered a team. And you then would have known the monies that you had because you weren't spending it on Nick Bosa, and you could have kept Robbie Gould, one of the most dependable kickers in NFL history, instead of burning a draft pick on a guy who's already missed preseason kicks and is going to miss the start of the regular season because he's hurt. And you actually took a kicker, early in the draft, which to me is always a hard pill to swallow. Like, there are so many things that could have happened if they had made up their mind on Bosa, which means they're way too far down this road to play, to just, dick around over an amount of money which will be settled into the growing cap of each and every year. Panicking over this $4 million price is ridiculous because the cap is going to go. Let me ask you, do you think the cap is going to go up or down? You know what I mean?
Well, barring another pandemic, I'd say it's probably going up.
Exactly. So, the amount of money that you will have to spend on great players kind of stretches to infinity. It really does. It really does. So this thing doesn't make sense to me. And all I can think of, and I even used this on the thumbnail that I'm attaching to a show that I'm hosting later today, is the picture of Logan Roy in the final season of Succession when he's sitting around and he's talking to his kids and he finally says, "You are not serious people." I think Kyle Shanahan's an outstanding coach. I think John Lynch has done a very good job as his right-hand man. Let's not exactly call him the GM because we know that Kyle does that too. I think Parag Marathe is essentially very good at his job too. But the job this year is to win the Super Bowl. At bare minimum, the only thing that 49er fans are going to accept is that was an acceptable season is hosting the NFC title game. So that's where, you're playing on that end of the poker table. This is high stakes. And without Nick Bosa, I can't help but think of Logan Roy. I would look Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, and Parag Marathe in the eye and just say, you are not serious people when it comes to really wanting to win a Super Bowl. No signing, Rob, not a single signing in the world guarantees a Super Bowl. I'll guarantee you, not signing Nick Bosa, you won't win one.
I completely agree. And, the 49ers can talk about this Super Bowl window. I'm really tired of hearing that phrase because they couldn't wait for Trey Lance to develop. They couldn't even wait for him to play 10 games. They had to get him out of town because it's a Super Bowl window and we can't wait. Yet they're not signing Nick Bosa because they're worried about the cap 3 years from now. They're worried about the roster 3 years down the road. That's not how you do it in a Super Bowl window. The Rams traded Jared Goff and took on the biggest dead cap hit in the history of the NFL because they were in a Super Bowl window and they wanted a quarterback and they got Stafford and they got the deal done. That's what you do in a Super Bowl window. Are they paying for it now? Yeah, they're paying for it now. But you know what? They got the shine from the Lombardi in the trophy case to keep them warm at night. We don't have that.
No, no, it's really incredible that every team that actually goes about winning a Super Bowl has that moment where they're like, okay, we're pushing our chips in the middle. We're going all in. It's now or never. And the 49ers are in that formula. Their inexpensive quarterback room is the vehicle that drives this entire franchise's way of doing business right now. And to have a starting quarterback whose salary is so low, it doesn't even count against the salary cap, yet you're telling me you can't afford to figure out a price to have Nick Bosa ready to go for week 1 in a year where you have the highest of aspirations. Again, to me, make it make sense. Like, make it make sense. You can't. To me, it doesn't make sense because, look, I'm no child. I understand that there is a very real mathematical equation happening around sports at all times. But the goal of a team should never be so focused on the mathematical equation, it takes the eye off the biggest prize, which is you got to go play this sport. And to go play this sport without Nick Bosa, to me, is just insane. What's Lawrence Taylor worth?
Right.
That's who we're talking about here. We're talking about the 1% of the 1% of NFL talent. I really think Nick Bosa has that. His brother is an overpaid doofus compared to his talent level. So I don't blame Team Bosa for wanting the entire earth, moon, and sun. They should want the entire universe. They should get the universe, Rob. They really, really should. And, if their retreat point is, well, we're worried about injury, well, then sell the team and get out of the sport of football, because injury could happen at any point in time. You can't use that as a negotiating moment in any negotiation. Anyone could get injured. You're out there playing in highway traffic, so anyone could get injured at any time. Well, we want to take into account then his injury history and past. Okay, well, now we're back to maybe you should have traded him if you had doubts like that. If you really thought that this was a player you didn't want to do the highest price point business with for a long career. And if you're telling me that this is all about guaranteed dollars, if I were Nick Bosa, I wouldn't be worried about any other element of this contract. There is no contract but the guaranteed dollars as far as I would be concerned. And I would definitely go to $110, $120 million on this guy. He's been in the league for 4 years. The team has been in the NFC title game for 3 of those 4 years. The only year that they didn't go is when, he blew his knee out or his ankle or whatever the hell happened at MetLife that day. So this to me is absurd. It's absurd. And they literally have, I believe, to the end of business today before they start looking like the biggest buffoons in the NFL. And this is a team that prides itself on looking like one of the smartest guys in the room.
But they're not. They're not that.
Well, here's the only out that they could possibly have. Let's say we really have reached event horizon, and Nick Bosa, for whatever reason, this isn't just about money. He really doesn't want to be a Niner. There's some element of that to this. And I don't want to even say where that element would come from, but let's just say that is baked into this somehow, some way. And Nick really doesn't want to be here anymore, even though, Rob, that would be contrary to every report we've ever heard about Nick Bosa and his satisfaction being a 49er. So he doesn't want to be here anymore. They make a trade. The team that does end up signing Nick Bosa better do it for a price that leaves the rest of the NFL looking at that team like a laughingstock. Like, it better be the type of price point that every single person involved in football goes, well, that team is crazy to pay that. That's more money than Patrick Mahomes is making, and defensive ends can never be worth that. Like, it's going to have to be so ludicrous to turn around and ever save face with 49er fans. And even then it would be a tough sell. So, the easiest explanation is always the right one. Just sign Nick Bosa. Get it done by end of business today. And if it costs more money than you want it to, tough shit. That's doing business in the NFL.
I always say, when you're going to make a big purchase, an amount of money that really matters to you, ask yourself 3 questions. And if you can answer yes to 2 out of the 3 questions, you will never regret the purchase ever. The first question, do I love it? Easy question to answer, right?
Yes.
Nick Bosa, do I love it? Yes.
as ferocious a football player as I've ever seen with my own two eyes. He's an A+++++.
Okay, that's question one. Question two, do I need it?
Yes.
Clearly.
Yes. You have a decent depth chart with him. Without him, your depth chart is terrible.
Yes. And so we've already solved this equation, but for the sake of the argument, the third question is it a good deal? I think it will be, because the production you're going to get from Bosa is going to outpace what you're paying him, and his contract is going to be lower down on the rung of contracts as we go along.
Absolutely. The deal that looks like it's unreasonable today will actually fit nicely into the pie tomorrow. Like it always happens. That always happens. I was talking about this with Larry Krueger just the other day. And, I said, it's kind of reminiscent of the Raiders saying, well, we can't be paying two guys $20 million on both sides of the ball. The whole Khalil Mack issue, when the Raiders gave up on him. And that's kind of what this feels like. Nick Bosa might have a little sticker shock associated with him today. That's going to be the price of a Honda Civic like 4 years from now. Like it really is. So I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. And a team that claims to be as smart as it is won't be regarded as very smart at all. Look, at some point, the football team has to be about football, right? Can't just be about a cap number, cap space. It's got to be about football. This is the best football player on the team. Christian McCaffrey maybe is in that conversation as well, but that's it. Trent Williams, maybe. But that's it. Nick Bosa in a dispersal draft to the NFL would be the first player selected off the 49ers. So that's who you're dealing with. That's what you got. You literally get to the draft and you pray to whatever God you pray to, and you poke whatever voodoo doll with all the pins that you have, that you eventually get yourself to a player like Nick Bosa. And when you have a guy like that, you don't let him walk at any price. It's hard to understand what the hell's going on here. When I really do, I have an awful high regard for the 49ers and how they go about their business and run their franchise. Like, I think that we got a lot of smart people with a lot of know-how. I know it's very in vogue to talk about what Kyle doesn't know and what he hasn't won. Well, sure, if you only want to look at the glass half empty version of the 49ers, there's a story to tell there. But there's also a massive, refreshing drink of water to be had in that glass as well. And to me, it's going to be harder to argue about how refreshing that water is if Nick Bosa isn't in uniform week one. Even if he shows up week 2, week 3, it's still like crime committed, act of negligence. My mind is spinning right now. Here's another element that I hate.
You need me for this?
This is another thing that I just hate about this. Do you realize that this team has put itself in a very realistic mental situation where the best player on the franchise will be rooting against the franchise week 1?
It's possible.
Right? No, not possibly. Definitely. Nick Bosa is in this for himself, right? That's what this is about. This is about his salary. This isn't about what is best for the 49ers. This is about what is best for Nick Bosa. What would then be best for Nick Bosa? Let me ask you this. Would it be good or bad for Nick Bosa if Drake Jackson gets the start in Pittsburgh and sets the single game sacks record? Like, if that happens, all of a sudden, well, Nick Bosa, our price is our price is our price. And that's it. We're done negotiating because we think we got your replacement right here. What Team Bosa will want out of week 1 is for the 49ers to be so thoroughly embarrassed defensively, they are on their hands and knees first thing Monday morning with Team Bosa, making sure that he's ready to go play the Los Angeles Rams down at SoFi Stadium in week 2. So they're actually putting their best player in a situation where, for his own business sake, he'll be rooting against his own team week 1 in Pittsburgh if he's not suited up and playing, because it would be in Nick Bosa's best interest for the 49ers to lose that game, and even better interest to lose that game in embarrassing fashion. So I hate that. Like, I hate that. That's just the wrong way to get everybody on the same page mentally to start a football season.
I want to go back to something you said a little while ago, because I was going to ask you the question of whether the 49ers are a well-run organization. And I'm not quite sure that they are. The weird thing about the 49ers, I think the football has been their saving grace. I think what they've been able to accomplish on the field has sort of deodorized some of the weird stuff they've done off the field. They burned 3 first-round draft picks. They set them on fire, and they got nothing out of Trey Lance. But they made the NFC Championship game every year of Trey Lance's career. Their quarterback situation has been a mess throughout the entire Shanahan tenure, right? They made the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo, and then but they were going to get Brady. But then in 2021, they made the NFC Championship game again. I almost feel like on the field, they're very well run. Off the field, I don't know what the hell's going on.
So Kyle Shanahan, the coach, is the best friend that Kyle Shanahan, the general manager, has ever had, because Kyle Shanahan, the general manager, would have been fired without Kyle Shanahan, the coach. I'll agree with you there. I know it is very easy to look at the investment in Trey Lance and want to use that in the first paragraph of Kyle's obituary, and it is a big moment, but it's a huge swing and miss. Look, they took the huge swing. It was a big strikeout. That happens. That's sports. It sucks. It totally sucks, but it's a sunk cost. I can live with it. I really can. I can live with that. I think that Kyle, if he were to just spend all of his time as the coach and less of his time worrying about the minutia of the roster, if he had a real GM who worked, hand in hand, but also kind of independently of him, things might have gone smoother. Things might have been smoother in off seasons and with draft picks. You can talk about all these burnt top of the draft picks. He has absolutely set his locker room on fire with talent late in the draft. I mean, we know where George Kittle came from. And honestly, if Trey Lance goes down as one of the worst draft picks of all time, if Brock Purdy turns into a franchise quarterback and is the starter for this team for the next 6-7 years, that goes down as one of the greatest draft picks of all time. So there's always a little something to balance out Kyle's mistakes and this franchise's offseason mistakes. Like, I didn't like the DeForest Buckner trade at all. There's a lot of things that you can sift through and say, I don't like that, don't like that, don't like that, don't like that. But I do think they're all very good at their jobs. Like, I really do. And I'm no Kyle kiss ass. I'm no sycophant of the 49ers. And I'm not rooting for anyone's success or failure. I'm just telling you what I see. I see Kyle being an absolute masterclass when it comes to X's and O's on games day. I mean, he runs more dudes wide open than anyone in the NFL. He really, truly does. The question is now, does he have the quarterback to get that dude the ball? And it is frustrating that has remained an issue. Again, I'm going to give Kyle a little bit of an out here. What do we got? 30 NFL teams. Not being able to find a quarterback is an issue for 20 of them. Every single year the NFL has ever existed, there are never more than 10 really good quarterbacks in this league. Quarterback is the hardest position in sports to play. It is the toughest position to fill. And when you have one, you hold on to one for dear life. I mean, that's how precious a franchise quarterback really is. And I do believe that you should keep turning it and burning it until you actually found one. So, I don't hold them responsible for some of the personnel decisions that they make, because that is an imperfect science. There is no one who bats 1,000 as a GM. There's no amount of collegiate experience that speaks to the level of success that you will have in the NFL. The only thing that proves that you can play in the NFL is the NFL. So no one knows until you actually get out there. So, I'm going to give them wiggle room on all of that. On a game day, he's fantastic. Unless it's a really big game and he's got a 10-point lead in the second half, in which case that seems to continue to kind of poof away. But, they're running into really good teams in the postseason. And postseason games are supposed to be as much of a coin flip as a regular season game, which is the biggest coin flip in sports. This is an any given Sunday league. I look at the whole picture. You want to get granular and nitpick, Kyle? Go ahead. There's a lot to nitpick. The whole picture, I believe the 49ers are one of the best run organizations in the NFL. And I think most of the NFL, its personnel, and media members would probably agree with that too. And so a whole bunch of those people can't be like completely wrong about that.
Well, I could care less what the 49ers media members say.
No, I'm not saying, I'm not even saying 49ers. I'm talking about real people who know what they're doing. Like, Brian Baldinger is the type of guy that I think is like a real NFL media member. He understands the game implicitly. He knows it from a player standpoint, a coaching standpoint, X's and O's. He understands the cap. He gets it all. And he'll be the first one to tell you that, Kyle Shanahan is really, 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 really good at what he does. So, I tend to lean on the side of there being some merit to that. And I'm just using what my own two eyes say too. Like being someone who grew up rooting for the Chicago Bears and someone who went to Indiana and has suffered through more bad football than I've ever seen. I know what bad football is. I really do. I know what bad football is. And I don't think I've seen a single bad football game from Kyle in his tenure. Once he turned the roster over, this team never quits on him. They never go dauber down. I'm going to tell you right now, if Nick Bosa isn't out there on Sunday, every single guy in that defense is going to play his dick off. I mean, this team plays hard for Kyle all the time, all circumstances, regardless of quarterback, regardless of opponent. Like, I do think he's got the right culture. I think his players respect him. And how do you get a player's respect as a head coach? You make players better. I really believe players believe Kyle makes them better. And that, to me, is hard to ignore.
The offensive guys do. I don't think the defensive guys think Kyle Shanahan makes them better.
Well, but look at how Kyle's invested in his defense, which makes this whole Nick Bosa situation a little more difficult. But Kyle is, turned two defensive coordinators into NFL head coaches. He has spent a huge amount of his draft picks. If all he cared about was offense, he has invested heavily in this defense as a free agent too. Javon Hargrave is obviously an example of that. Charvarius Ward is an example of that. I think he does have a good eye for defense. And truthfully, if you wanted to really just package all 4 years together of the 3 out of 4 NFC title games, the defense has been carrying the song in every season that they've played. So I don't have any defensive problems with Kyle Shanahan. I mean, he grows head coaches from his coaching tree. He surrounds himself with talent that other franchises covet. That matters to me. And I think it should matter to fans too.
I didn't say he didn't have an eye for defense. I said he doesn't make the defensive players better. He makes the offensive players better, but he doesn't do that. I mean, he's an offensive coach. That's not meant to be a knock on him. It's just
right. I mean, we know where his eye is, but every single thing he is coaching his offensive player to do, there's a defensive player trying to react to that and learn how to stop Kyle Shanahan's plans and schemes. And that right there makes that player better. Like it's what's it? Symbiosis, right? It's all it all connects.
I love Kyle as a coach, even though I've been critical of him a lot. It doesn't mean I want him fired. I think people make that leap too much. You can be critical of someone and still want them to keep their job. Those don't present the false choice. I don't like that. But I do not like how they have handled a lot of things in the offseason, from the Bosa thing to the Lance thing. They always pee on our leg and tell us it's raining. And I have no tolerance for that. As a fan, as a host, I cannot stand it because they act like we can't see what they're doing. But it's not hard to see what they're actually doing. And that's what drives me crazy more than anything.
Right. And so if you want to be a happier Niner fan, don't tune into press conferences. They'll just frustrate you. They really will, because they tell you what you want to hear. You can't really believe Kyle, even though I do think there's an element where he's trying to give an honest answer or trying to teach someone something. He'll say whatever he needs to say to filibuster himself through whatever press conference he's sitting in. He's already got that Kyle press conference cadence down to his voice. Like you know the syllable he's going to end his sentence on. Like it just feels like Shakespearean iambic pentameter. Like he's just got this flow to him in his press conferences that he doesn't want to deal with the media. I can tell. It's easy to see that he just wants to coach. Oh, yeah. If this Nick Bosa thing doesn't end smoothly, your argument grows louder, Rob. And my ability to defend certain decisions grows a bit weaker, because to me, it's hard to split the difference on everyone and everything and always come out on the right side of it. To me, there's nothing to negotiate here with Nick Bosa. He's the best player at his position in football. Give him the world. Like, that is how this should go. And it's going to be hard to save personnel face if we have a personnel issue here with Nick Bosa, which we have. If it's not resolved by week 1, slings and arrows for Kyle aren't misplaced. I mean, they really aren't. And like I said, here's what's going to happen. Or here's what would happen. Let's say Kyle doesn't win the Super Bowl this year or next year. I still think he's the 49ers coach 3 years from now. I think when Kyle Shanahan is done, he will have coached more games as head coach of the 49ers than any human being, and he might have even won more games as 49ers head coach than any other human being. He's got an audience of one. That one person is Jed York. Jed York is incredibly happy with the job that Kyle is doing. All the questioning and, is the seat getting hot? It's not even warm. It hasn't even been sitting in the sunshine. It's not even 3 degrees above room temperature for Kyle Shanahan. It's not. And, a lot of fans might say, well, I hate that. It should be. Believe me, Kyle wants to win a Super Bowl more than any season ticket holder. He really does. He's the son of a coach. This is his entire family business. This is his legacy. I've heard stupid things like Kyle doesn't even really want to get to a 3rd Super Bowl because the pressure to win it would be so immense. He doesn't even want to deal with it. Like, that's nonsense. That's a drunk guy at the end of the bar talking.
Yeah, I don't know who said that. That's
yeah.
I do think it's interesting, though, that the 49ers press corps, you're starting to see it turn a little bit. The 49ers press corps, which is basically like a PR crew for the team, who almost never criticizes the team. I've seen multiple columns this week about how the Niners are screwing this up, how they have to pay Bosa. It's very, very rare that you get critical analysis from the press corps, but I think that that's where we are. Like, even the 49ers beat writers are turning on the team.
Well, that's how obvious it is to sign Nick Bosa. I mean, that's how ridiculous this really looks and feels from everyone. Again, there are negotiations to be had when mystery surrounds a player. There is no mystery surrounding Nick Bosa, so it's impossible to defend. It's impossible to defend that he isn't already signed and on the team and 2 preseason games into iron sharpening iron and ready to go week 1. Like, that should have all happened by now. It hasn't. So there's only one saving grace, and that's, hey, he is out there week 1. And look, no one more than me in any element of the 49ers media has told you that trying to react to preseason completion percentages is the single dumbest way to go about leading up to a football season of all time. Like, the breathless overreaction we see from some people coming off of practice fields, to me, is just like hysterical and childish, and you literally have no idea what you're looking at, even though as you brag, I look at it every single day and I can see it with my own 2 eyes. You don't even know what you're looking at. You've been so wrong about everything. Nothing matters in football until the light goes green week 1. So honestly, if Nick Bosa is out there when the light goes green on Nick 1, all of this conversation, everything that we've just offered up, poof, vanishes into thin air. If they go and they win week 1 in Pittsburgh.
The 49ers put themselves in that situation, though, right? Like, yes, I assume you're talking about the quarterback situation and the preseason coverage of Darnold and Trey. And look, I was there. I was interested in every single practice. The 49ers did that to themselves. Trey Lance never should have been in a competition to be the 49ers backup quarterback if everything they said about him was actually true, but clearly it wasn't.
They also got to maintain any semblance of trade value. I mean, at no point in time should the 49ers have come out and said, you know what, man, we really screwed this up. And this kid, he can't fucking play. We know it. We're going to trade him. We're going to bring in Sam Darnold because Trey Lance, we might as well pick one of you. Matt Mayoko, you come out here and you fucking play quarterback. Trey Lance is not an NFL quarterback to this point in time. And the fact that the only GM that is interested in him is Jerry Jones is not a good sign. Okay. There's a lot of people who bet their entire reputations on Trey Lance being the future, and they tried to speak something into existence that clearly 49ers coaches instantly saw was not there. And even having said that, they gave him the keys to the kingdom last year. What changed for Trey Lance was Brock Purdy, walks on water. Who would have ever thought that would have happened? That changed the situation for Trey Lance, I think, more than anything.
Well, so, I don't want to relitigate the Lance stuff, but my point is, to me, and I said it the second Sam Darnold agreed to his contract on the first day of legal tampering. If you looked at what the 49ers actually did, they told the NFL that they were out on Trey Lance, because you don't sign Darnold when you signed him to the contract you signed him to unless you are doubting Trey Lance. So to me, them saying nice flowery things about him, you're not going to trick NFL GMs. They know what's up. They know how they would run their team. So you didn't trick the Cowboys into giving up a 4th round pick for Trey Lance because you said nice things about him. The Cowboys did that because Jerry Jones is Jerry Jones. But they constantly put themselves in this situation where instead of having like a nice, cool, calm, chill offseason, we're breaking down practice reps and practice snaps of the backup quarterback. Like, that's why I say, like, I don't know how well run they are outside of the 60 minutes of game time every week.
But isn't that really all that matters? Isn't that all that matters? That's it. That's the game is what matters. Everything else is just talking. But it's like what if I told you that, yeah, your off season is going to be a headache and Monday through Saturday kind of suck, but every single Sunday you go out and you represent yourself really well and you win more often than not, and you're constantly in the NFC title game. Like, that's good.
You're
that's
not
really
going to be constantly in the NFC title game. That's the thing. Like, this doesn't.
I mean, that's the thing. I'm using past as what happened. If you go to 3 out of 4 NFC title games, that to me is a very good description of you're constantly in the NFC title game. I mean, it really is. Now here's the thing. The standard is now that. I mean, that's what Kyle's living up to now. That is the standard, and they got to get back there. And I can't help but notice that they haven't been there without Nick Bosa. So, back to our original topic, why would you mess around with that guy? You're looking for dependable production. That guy is the walking embodiment of dependable football production. His pressure rate, his sack rate is through the roof. Why? I mean, and then let's say there was a better way to just go about starting the Nick Bosa conversation. I would have done with Jed York. I would have signed Javon Hargrave, got Javon Hargrave on a private plane with Jed York. I would have flown to Coral Gables or wherever the Bosas live and just say, hey, not only are we prepared to make you the highest paid defender in football, but look at what we also got you. Here's the cherry on top. We got you someone to play next to who is going to be better than anyone you've played next to. Let's go win a Super Bowl. Like, there was a way to sell Nick Bosa on this year, maybe even better than they have, or maybe Nick Bosa is just straight up dollars and cents, and I don't give a shit about anything else. But to me, there was a better way to couch all of this, and I think that's what you're talking about. There's a better way to couch the Darnold thing and and all of this, and it doesn't have to feel like chaos. But football kind of is chaos. All the time, all around. There aren't a lot of rosters that are smooth and easy breezy all the way through. So we can feel the pressure now of Kyle going in to year 7. And that's a long time. There's no one who has coached that long in football with one team, current class of coaches, that hasn't won a Super Bowl. Sean McDermott is also going into his 7th year in Buffalo. So he and Kyle are sort of walking a similar path. And the Buffalo Bills, you want to talk about a frustrated fan base. They don't even know what a Lombardi trophy looks like. They're still waiting to see their first. But as frustrating as Bills seasons have ended, you got to admit, they're knocking on the door. It should be happening. And that's where Kyle is. And that's where the 49ers, they have been knocking on the door for so long that it's got to open in the next 2 years for them to continue. Like, to me, the quarterback window is the rookie prices on your quarterbacks, because that's the only way that you can build a juggernaut roster, is if you're not paying first top shelf money to your quarterback.
But you don't need a juggernaut roster to win a Super Bowl. You need a really good freaking quarterback. I just saw the Chiefs win a Super Bowl. The roster around Patrick Mahomes, not that great. Jerick McKinnon led them in receiving touchdowns with 9. Okay. when you got the only reason we talk about this Super Bowl window is because the 49ers don't have that quarterback. So they have to win in this window because everyone else on the roster is going to want to get paid and get big contracts. But Joe Burrow said it best. The Super Bowl window is my whole career. He's right. That's how you should do it. The 49ers are trying to reverse it and add a quarterback into a finished roster, and they're still trying to do it with Brock Purdy.
Rob, I'll tell you that the minute you go ahead and you find Hall of Fame quarterback, you're going to be in great shape. But those are hard to find.
Yeah.
They're really hard to find. It's easier to build a roster, and they're looking for that quarterback. I mean, that's the thing. You can't say that that's the end all be all and then continue to be angry about the investment they made to try Trey Lance. Kyle thought he had something. He thought he had identified his quarterback of all time. And he was wrong. Well, and I think it takes a little guts to admit it as quickly as he did and say, I'm moving on. And I know I'm going to get pilloried for this, but I'm doing it.
I loved the trade up to 3. I didn't care that they gave up 3 first-round picks. I loved the swing that they took. I would be fine if they traded 3 first-round picks to move up for Caleb Williams if he comes out in the draft. I have no problem with that. My problem with Shanahan is they never unwrap the present. The idea that you could tell me you know what Trey Lance is after 4 career starts, 1 in a monsoon and 1 where he gets hurt in the first quarter, I don't buy that.
But he doesn't need to explore it any further because he has his answer in Brock Purdy. And he can't take Brock Purdy off the field to continue to try to figure out what Trey is.
Yes, he can. I just saw this movie with Jimmy Garoppolo in 2017, right? He had a nice stretch of 5 games in the regular season where he didn't lose. How'd that work out? Guess what? Jimmy wasn't the guy.
But that was different. That wasn't the dawn of a career. That was the end of a career. That wasn't the beginning. That was the end for Jimmy. So like it was.
What do you mean?
What are you talking about? Last year when he came in and spelled the team?
No, I'm saying in 2017, Jimmy Garoppolo won 5 games, just like Brock Purdy did in the regular season. And we were like, Jimmy Garoppolo's the guy. You can't take Jimmy off the field. Look what he did.
Right.
And it turns out he wasn't the guy. They had to move heaven and earth to try to get rid of him, to try to replace him. So the idea that you know what Brock Purdy is right now, I don't buy. I don't think anybody can.
Here's the good thing. At least it's not attached to what that was the time, the highest paid quarterback in football. Like at least Brock comes with a window of bargain bin pricing while you're still truly figuring out who he is with a lot of good hope. I mean, I'm going to tell you, my football eyes tell me that guy can play. My football eyes told me Jimmy was a pretty good player. And I do think that Jimmy is a really good player. He's an okay. Yeah. Dude, he is a top 20 NFL quarterback. And the bottom 10 basically are non-functional. Jimmy's a functional quarterback. He's good. Is he great? No, but greatness is hard to find. I think Patrick Mahomes has broken people. Like they say on him and everyone's like, well, everyone needs one of those. Well, everyone's looking for one of those. There aren't a lot of those around. There aren't. I think Kyle, more than any other coach, looks at quarterback differently.
Yeah, incorrectly.
I think the 49ers absolutely evaluate the importance of quarterback in this system differently than other NFL teams do. And Kyle would rather have the offensive line, the running game, the wide receivers, and a quarterback who can hit 6-yard slants all day long. And that's what he's looking for. He wants a yes chef quarterback. He doesn't want someone. Kyle's offense, in Kyle's mind, is the star of the show.
Yeah, that's wrong. That's just flat out wrong and dumb.
But wrong and dumb to the tune of 3 of the last 4 NFC title games. So you're 4 quarters away from being very, very right. You're 1 Jimmy Garoppolo to Emmanuel Sanders completion away from being very right, and Jimmy still being the quarterback. Like it.
Yeah, and guess what? He didn't complete the pass. That's the problem. The quarterback that can complete that pass isn't the guy that just paints by number in the offense. It's something more than that. That quarterback that Kyle wants doesn't win Super Bowls. He doesn't.
If I retrofit your argument that one pass is the entirety of Jimmy Garoppolo's career, you should have seen this guy named John Elway go down in flames in Super Bowls. Okay? Like go down in flames. And John Elway is indisputably one of the 5 greatest quarterbacks to ever play. The fact that he did not win a Super Bowl in his first 4 opportunities knocking on the door of the Super Bowl, whatever it was. Anyone who wanted to use that in an indictment as to who he was or wasn't was wrong. What he was awesome. The team around him wasn't. Kyle is looking at it kind of the other way. And I think that he has got an awful lot of data points returned to him that his way of looking at the football world isn't wrong. He would tell you you're wrong.
Oh, I'm sure.
Finding that miracle going to the Canton quarterback is harder to do than building a really steady football team just around everywhere else and then get somebody to play this position functionally.
But you're not winning the Super Bowl either way.
Look, I'm not saying whether he's right or wrong. I'm trying to say that's the way I think he looks at it. And as long as he is the head coach of the 49ers, you better buckle up because that's the ride you're on. Kyle's not about to change his philosophy to accommodate a fan base who is dying for the next Joe Montana. And believe me, if he finds one, sky's the limit. And maybe he's found one in Brock Purdy. We don't know. There's a lot of data points to still be returned on that. I think Kyle's built a really good team that's had an unquestionable amount of success over the last 4 years. To say that he doesn't know what he's doing is like it's like a detachment from reality that I can't meet you over there. He does know what he's doing. He might not have won a Super Bowl, but he knows what he's doing.
He doesn't know what he's doing at the quarterback. Everywhere else, I agree with you. And I agree with your description of how he views it. I think that's exactly right. I'm saying that view is flawed and that view doesn't win Super Bowls and it hasn't won Super Bowls, right? If you have the quarterback that Kyle wants in Jimmy Garoppolo is the quarterback that could not gain a single positive yard of offense against the Rams in the NFC Championship game in 2021 in the final 10 minutes of the game. They couldn't gain a yard. That doesn't happen.
Right? I mean, that's the thing. He got hurt, and that obviously he goes and he has surgery and and then we start the next year in that weird way. But I mean, injuries happen, man. Brock Purdy was playing really, really well until he got hurt in the NFC title game, and I look, what if Purdy is the guy? If Purdy is the guy and he really is this team's quarterback for the next 7 years, will you say that Kyle doesn't know what he's doing at quarterback? Or would you say, oh my God, this guy found a starting quarterback at Mr. Irrelevant? And if that's not proof that he knows about quarterbacks, I mean, to me, he gets the best out of everyone's career. Every single quarterback that leaves him regresses. Every single quarterback that comes to him gets better. That's a guy who knows quarterback play. But why not? We haven't heard of C.J. Beathard or Nick Mullins or Brian Hoyer since they have left Team Shanahan. Haven't heard of them. Why not? Are you expecting Jimmy Garoppolo to be better this year or regress? I'm expecting a regression.
I think he'll be about the same because Josh McDaniels can call plays too. He's a good play caller,
and he's got a couple good players around him. There's no doubt. But I just think. Go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off. Give that boost. Like I agree, you get a Shanahan boost for sure. But instead of giving that boost to a Honda Civic, give it to a Lamborghini. Give it to a Corvette. And I get it's hard to find those cars, but that's the job. And if you don't have one of those cars, you're not winning a Super Bowl either way. You're not, even with a really good roster. Maybe you'll get to the NFC Championship game, but you're not going to win a Super Bowl. And that's what the whole goal of this thing is. And I think until he realizes that his offense cannot be the star, that it's got to be a combination of your offense and a great player and input from that great player, he won't win a Super Bowl.
I think that that's fair. I think the way that he looks at it is my great players are Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, and these are the guys who will make my quarterback good enough to execute a level of offense that qualifies me for, hey, they could be a Super Bowl team with a defense that complements everything you're seeing, which brings us back to Nick Bosa. And that's where we are. Everything goes back to where is Nick Bosa, because everything that you said about quarterback, look, there's an element of truth to it. There really is. But as this team is built, Nick Bosa is a must-have piece as it is currently constructed. And I'm going to tell you right now, Rob, I don't want to hear you complaining about the quarterback anymore because we're done. We're done. The season starts Thursday. Game 1 is Sunday. The 49ers will not be adding or subtracting a quarterback between now and then. Your quarterback room is your quarterback room. That's what you got this year. That's what you're dealing with this year. So complaining about what might have been, should have been, could have been, Trey Lance have been, it's over. It's over. The war starts on Sunday. This is the army you're going to fight with. I think it's a pretty good army. I think it's a really good army. I think the NFC is Eagles, Niners, everybody else.
Yep. Just like it was Niners, Cowboys, everybody else back in the day.
Like that's a really good place to be operating from to start a year. As frustrating as all this is, as zeroed in on all the problems as we all are, most teams in football would have their mothers kidnapped to be in the situation that we're complaining about every day as we cover the 49ers.
I agree. There's a lot to love for sure. And we should appreciate the good times because teams don't usually make 3 NFC championship games in 4 years. And they certainly don't do that when they use 4 quarterbacks in a season. So, and I fully acknowledge that. Before we wrap up, there is something else I want to get to with you, because I have a policy that I never say anything on this show that I wouldn't say to somebody's face if I had the opportunity to speak with them. And so you are here. So I want to bring up some comments that you made about a month ago, because I think that you are someone who is very, you hold what we do in very high regard, because it's not easy to do and it takes effort. And there are a lot of people doing it, especially right now in today's day and age. And you had said something to the effect of, you are the adult in the room. And there are a lot of 49ers content creators that I got the feeling you don't hold in as high of regard. Is that true?
So to me, there's a difference between a broadcaster who has been the official pre and post game host of the franchise we're talking about, has worked for their flagship station, and has been on the air for the better part of 2 decades, and someone who has YouTube. That's just, and you can say, well, Damon, that's a little snobby of you, isn't it? I mean, there's a difference between someone who has been paid by several media companies to represent them in publicly traded and FCC regulated spaces, and someone who presses go live on YouTube. Just because we're all over here on YouTube now doesn't mean we're all the same or have the same starting point. And so to me, breathless, fan-based, emotional reaction, that's the phone call that I used to hang up on, not the show that I would go to for my inside information about the team I care about. That was the way I went about it. Now, we all are different. I'm a little older. I have a different way of going about searching for media that I deem valuable than other people do. They just want to be entertained. And if a guy screaming about everything all the time is entertaining to you, then go seek your entertainment. But to me, I don't do or sit or consume anything unless I think there's going to be some value there, which is why I really like your channel. I have watched an awful lot of the interviews that you've done, some of the content creators that you've had on. Again, I've been in this space for a grand total of, I think, 4 or 5 months now. So I'm still learning the road and learning the ropes and figuring out, boy, I think this person is good. I don't know about that person. And so I was talking with Larry about just, again, Grant Cohn is the topic which this all bloomed. I don't begrudge Grant anything. He's been very successful doing what he's doing. What I hate are the Grant Cohn copycats who are trying to be this over the top, the house is always burning, everything is wrong type of, journalist. Is that what you want to call yourself? Or content creator? Like, to me, the one Grant Cohn is enough. It's the copycats that drive me nuts. It's the way I feel about Skip Bayless. Like, Skip Bayless, he's done his thing. The biggest problem with Skip Bayless is there have been a generation of students who have gone through college saying, I want to be the next Skip Bayless. I want to be the next Skip. If you want to be the next Skip Bayless, you are going to be the most useless media member in the world. You're just a screamer. You're a self-promoter. And that to me isn't valuable. So that's just the way I look at it. A little bit older, a little bit, I don't know. Like I said, an adult in the room. Here's the thing. I'm not a 49ers fan. I think I covered the team about as well as anyone, and I definitely covered the team. So remember Deion Sanders? Huge win for Colorado. And at the press conference that reporter's like, he asked a question and Deion's like, do you believe? Do you believe? And the reporter wouldn't answer. And he's like, all right, next question. And everyone's like, yeah, Deion, dunk on that report. Yeah. This is how misled the American public has been, intentionally so, about journalists and what they do and what they're supposed to be. Journalists are supposed to be skeptical, and they're not supposed to be a bunch of jock-riding fanboys of the team that they're actually covering.
I agree.
That's the way it goes. In my mind, I'm from that era. And I know that era is dying quickly and is dinosaurish and maybe doesn't play well at all on YouTube. And I thank you for having me on. I'm probably going to get you in trouble with some other content creators for having me on. But I just constantly screaming means you're never screaming. If
so
all you do is overreact to everything, well, then what's the point of overreacting at all? I mean, it's the only gear you got. And that to me is dismissible and disposable. And, it's funny. The guy who came at me was this Jesse Naylor.
Yeah.
I actually think he's good at what he does. I've seen him with Kruger. I wasn't complaining about him. And then he was the one who came down my road. I think he's good at what he does.
So
I think he's good at what he does, but we are not the same. We are not the same. I have covered this team for 18 years in person. I know people that are involved with the 49ers whose names he's never heard of. There's an element of being here, actually covering something and having a YouTube channel and talking about it. And that, I guess, was the point I was trying to make.
So, okay, see, I feel like you've said what I was going to say is it sounds like your issue was more the particular content of someone's broadcast rather than the fact that they are just on YouTube. But then that last thing that you said about Jesse, that's a different thing. You're saying you were more informed. Is that accurate? I don't want to put words in your mouth. So you're saying you're more informed because of your experience covering the team and in this business.
Right. I've been around the game long enough to understand the grander scheme of the game. It's not just 1 year, one moment at all time. It's all connected together. And yes, I look at it this way. The only person who would sneeze at 18 years of experience would be the person without it, right?
Yeah, I would say. And I don't want to get into that part of it. I agree. You do have experience that a lot of people doing this don't have. I have experience doing this that a lot of people don't have. But I think that it's not hard to learn about the game and learn about what's going on and see how it all works. I don't think it's an unknowable, unlearnable thing.
I know, but I would also say that football fans are literally, they think they know more about what's going on and they don't know. The football that is being discussed in coaches' rooms is a language that none of us speak.
Agreed.
To try to say, I know more than Kyle Shanahan. I could have done a better job than this. Like, to me, I'm instantly walking away from you at the bar with my beer. We're done talking. You don't know more than Kyle Shanahan. You don't know more about quarterback play than Kyle Shanahan. You don't know more about this team than he does. You don't know more than any football coach. You don't know more about than the video assistant coordinator does. There is football being the single most consumed sport in the world is still probably the least understood sport in the world.
Yeah, I would say anyone that argues that they know more X's and O's than Kyle Shanahan is absurd. It's
right.
Clearly,
well, I guess I was talking about a lot of that, I guess.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think that's crazy. But I just, yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like when I heard that, I got a little sensitive. Like I'm a content creator. That's what I do.
Well, I guess I'm now too. But to me, to become a content creator, I had to get demoted and laid off a job that I was being paid a great sum of money for to like do this. So I got thrust into this world. Maybe I was a little bit bitter to be here. Let me tell you, I am figuring out how liberating it is and how fun it is. I'm having a great time. I'm meeting new people and I'm learning more every day. I've always been a little bit of a bull in a china shop. I'm not surprised to see that I've rattled cages almost instantly upon my arrival. It goes with the territory, but that's what I do. It's who I've been. And I'm just here to talk sports. I'm not here to consider anyone's feelings or anything else. I just want to get to what's going on here. What is actually happening is what I'm searching for more than anything else. And I would never call myself a journalist with a capital J. I'm a sports talk radio host, but I did it long enough around multiple teams, multiple seasons, multiple franchises, sports throughout the entire year, where I've immersed myself living around sports for the better part of 20 years now. And I do think that gives me a leg up on, someone who is talking about a team from somewhere else. That's the way I feel.
From Connecticut, like me? You could say it.
No, because you know what? But I've seen you. I like you. You've come out to training camp. You have been around the team.
I've never been to training camp.
No,
I've never been to training camp. I'm going to my first ever 49ers game this year. I'll be at Niners Cowboys. I've lived in Connecticut my whole life.
I could have sworn we met, or maybe we met in Connecticut then. I don't know. Did we meet at ESPN when I was there?
That's possible.
Maybe that's where but geez, anyways, here's the thing. I guess proximity matters less in the world than ever before. And if you're good, the cream rises to the top. You're really good at what you do. It's why I really wanted to come on with you and join you today. This was an awful lot of fun. And I thank you so much for having me on. And you are an insightful, smart guy. So talking with you was an absolute pleasure, Rob. And I hope we do it sometime. And I hope you'll join me on my channel sometime.
I would love to. And I really appreciate you making the time. I know you carved out a big part of your day to make this happen. And like I said, I never want to say anything on the air that I wouldn't say to anybody's face. I've said I hate Russell Wilson. I've told Russell Wilson to his face that I hate his guts. He could not have cared less, by the way.
But why? Why do you hate Russell Wilson? What's he ever done to you?
He's tormented me for a decade. Are you serious?
He's just doing his job.
Yeah, I don't hate him as a person. I mean, I don't know.
Well, you just said you hate his guts. So
yeah, I mean, as a player, though,
like you had to tell him to his face that you hated his guts.
Well, I made a bet with Mike Florio because he said I wouldn't do it. So I said, yes, I will. And so I did.
All right.
But I do think that is something, especially I take very seriously. We have a platform and people watch us and people tune in. So I could go all in on people and criticize them personally and all that stuff, but I don't want to do it. I think that's not the way to do it. I think it's a thing.
I gave a very grand, like a broad stroke criticism of the new medium that I found myself wandering around. And some people took it very personally. And I don't take things personally either. I mean, I've had Keith Olbermann do shows about how I'm the worst person in the world. Like,
you won that award.
somebody who, somebody's saying, I don't like Damon Bruce. I like get in line, take a number.
Well, thank you very much for the time. I really appreciate it. I'm happy to have you back. And if you ever need me, you know where to find me.
We'll talk soon, man. Thank you very much, Rob. You have a great day.